Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Let's make it fundamental things that we're cleaning up now as we start to click up in the speed of things and the competition of things. Let's not make it mental errors. Let's not make it things that we can control, but just by preparing, coaches being on top of things and us doing a great job communicating from the top down. And then, in my opinion, it's been what's been really excited about our quarterbacks, especially Kirk. I mean, they control a lot and they're running the show, whether it's tempo, whether it's, the situational stuff that we're doing. And these guys are thriving. They're doing a great job and continuing to build. But that's a good question, and I like where we're at.
That, of course, Vikings coach Kevin O'Connell talking about the progression of the offense. Welcome into Purple Access, Zolgad, Chip Scoggin, Star Tribune sports columnist, and Declan Goff, executive producer. Purple Access, sponsored by our friends at Surly Brewing Company. We'll talk about Surly because it is a favorite of both Mr. Scoggins and yours truly, and also TCL. If you're not watching sports on a TCL, what are you doing? TCL TV. Enjoy more with TCL. Chip, we played that soundbite of O'Connell because we were both at the practice yesterday, the OTA. And I want to ask you about this because this occurred to me in watching what we have been allowed to watch so far. And this is not an excuse for the Vikings. It's also not an indictment, but I think it's a fair statement. And I'm curious to get your thoughts. It occurs to me in watching what this team is doing offensively, which is a wholesale change. And they're also updating it to probably be a pretty aggressive change to 2022 techniques and schemes. That this is going to be a work in progress. Mm-hmm. You don't have all the time in the world on the field in the springtime. Training camp now is going to be much, they're very confined to practice here for this long, then get off the field. I think that this could be a work in progress into the season, just as far as guys adapting. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you see some growing pains early on, maybe even some, penalties for not getting the playoff or, so maybe some confusion where guys are supposed to line up because we saw that yesterday. Now they got a lot of time before the season starts, but
right.
When Kirk Cousins is telling you that he has to use flashcards for like one of the only times in his career to try to, learn this stuff and digest a whole new verbiage, a whole new scheme. There's going to be guys that don't pick it up as quickly as Kirk Cousins, right? Now he has to know more than everybody else on the offense, but we saw it yesterday where there's a lot of, hey, no, you're out there. No,
And I've seen that before too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess that's to be expected though, right? When you're installing a whole new thing and this is OTAs, it's not going to be perfect. And I'm sure their heads are spinning a little bit with some of this stuff. O'Connell seems pretty pleased about where they're at, but I agree with you that to think that they're going to have this thing mastered by game one, I think is probably unrealistic.
And I think in addition to Kirk, who, is going to have a ton to learn and execute, I also am curious on Jefferson. Because like playing the Cooper Kupp role sounds awesome. Hey, he's going to be Cooper Kupp. He's going to do this. But if you think about that requires a ton of knowledge of what they want from you in the slot, what they want from you outside, right? So he's the next guy that I think it's going to be very interesting to see the adapting ability to quickly get all of these different asks down.
Well, and O'Connell mentioned yesterday at his presser that both him and Thielen, they're moving around to multiple spots. So it's not like you're just, okay, you're out there every time and, you just know where your responsibilities are. No, he's slot. He's on left. He's on right. He's, they're going to move him around because you have to with defenses that are going to be focused on him. So you have to be creative in how you use them and can't be predictable. And so, I think there's a lot on his plate in terms of learning where he's supposed to line up. And remember, O'Connell talked a lot about, there was a play yesterday where Thielen made a great grab. That was, I don't know if it was improvised in the red zone, but it was sort of a Cousins to Thielen trust throw type that wasn't necessarily scripted. And they talked about this offense is going to be a lot of the quarterback and receivers having to be on the same page and knowing where how to react to certain coverages or, whatever looks they're getting. And so there is the potential for it to be a little rough while they're trying to figure this out and, just kind of improvise and adjust to what they're seeing from the defense too.
That's a great point. So give me your opinion on this too. So like this offense is hugely different. There's no question about that. But I want your opinion on Kirk. Do you think, because like this is going to work its best if Kirk takes some control too, and I'm not saying lashes back, but I'm saying like says, oh, okay, I like this, I don't like this, I like this. Do you think that we are going to see, because he's definitely not a young man, do you think that we're going to see a step from Kirk as far as a willingness and an accountability to also say, hey, Kevin, I love X, Y, and Z, I hate A, B, and I really don't like C?
I do think there is the potential for that because I think he knows and likes and trusts his coach now. Whereas in the past, like with Zimmer, there was such a disconnect there that even though publicly, Zimmer was saying, we want him to cut it loose and sling it and don't worry about mistakes. I don't know that ever really resonated behind the scenes and Kirk believed that, because anytime there was mistakes, the default setting was, we got to run the ball. We're not running the ball enough, So I do think just having the comfort level with O'Connell will allow Cousins to kind of take that charge and have that authority. Because what does O'Connell say every time? This is all about, he said it again yesterday. Every time I hear him talk, he talks about how Cousins in particular are taking ownership of this offense and kind of doing things the way they want to do them, right? And so, and leading and do it. So it almost feels like he's publicly doing it. I'm sure he's doing it privately, empowering Cousins to be that person.
Yeah, and I think that's incredibly smart because he has to be. Like we know what Kirk is like when he's not empowered, and almost the way Kevin's doing it in a frontal way, not a adversity.
Passive aggressive, yeah.
But he's almost doing it to say like this is going to be Kirk's too, and Adams and Justin's, and I think that's the only way to get Kirk to probably, because Kirk is not Brady in the mental sense of saying, you know what, Bruce, your offense stinks. We're doing my thing, and we're 8 games in. That's not Kirk. So I think empowering him like Kevin is doing is really the only way to get it through to Kirk that you have to play a key role in what we're doing in the classroom and on the field.
Yeah, but how much of this too, Judd, comes back to personality and DNA and how you're wired?
100%.
So can you change that?
I have no idea. I really don't know. I mean, it's the biggest question that I have, which is can Kevin O'Connell put his brain and sort of his puppet strings? It's why I've always said Kirk is a puppet string quarterback, because you literally need to work him. You need to work him like a puppet. And that doesn't mean he's a bad one. He's a good puppet. But, Kevin is doing his best. I mean, we saw that and will continue to. And to go back to, and this is the thing about the DiFilippo failure that I don't think was talked about enough. John was hired because they just signed Kirk. And what they said was, and what John said was, I have a top 10 National Football League QB, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to install an offense that a top 10 guy can run. And we saw that.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. It didn't work because Kirk is probably 11 or 12, and it didn't work because I think DiFilippo had assumptions about Kirk that were 1,000% incorrect. So I guess the question now is, can Kevin do the same thing, but it's more empowering Kirk as well to have a say?
How much does adding Justin Jefferson to the mix change that?
Well, Diggs was here at the time, so
yeah, that's true.
Diggs was damn good.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, and Thielen was great. Yeah, Thielen was young in his prime. I guess he was in his prime, I guess you would say. I guess it's, again, though, I think it goes back to having your coaching staff and players in alignment. And I just don't know they ever had that. I mean, Zimmer resisted that.
100%.
So is that –
you're right.
Is Cousins going to feel that? It's great that your offense coordinator is saying that, but when the head coach is telling you something different, or you get that sense, a different sense from your head coach. That's why I think that's the right word. I just get the sense that O'Connell is definitely trying to empower him, and that's where they feel like the growth is going to come from versus throwing more passes or it's
Yes.
having him. And I keep going back to that chaotic 2-minute drive where time's coming off the clock and everybody's screaming and nobody calls a timeout, and Cousins said he couldn't do it because he leaves that to the coaches. I mean, that just can't happen. And so I think there are just times where he just felt at odds with the scheme, play calling, head coach. And so I think if you remove that and you bring in a guy he knows and a guy he trusts, and a system that's built around him, really, that's him and Justin Jefferson. And I just think I think it's going to be great for him. But again, he has to be willing to come out of that. I don't know if it's a shell. That's not the right word, but you know what I'm saying? He has to
conservative fallback.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what he's got. He's got conservative fallback.
Exactly. He has to be willing to kind of push the envelope too.
And that's why I think the great Thielen red zone catch on Wednesday thrilled O'Connell, because that was like, there's going to be times, especially as guys are going to screw up, because there's a lot to learn here. There's going to be times where Kirk has to basically play backyard football. Like, he's going to have to make a play that's probably not designed to be there because, KJ Osborne ran the wrong route or Jefferson did, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's where it's literally in every way empowering Kirk to say, this is yours. This car is yours. This car does not go slow, dude. This car goes fast. And if you need to make a move that Mike would have been like, what the hell was that? Kevin O'Connell will say, hey, good effort, good try.
Well, and the other thing is, this is what, year 5 with him and Thielen together, right?
Yeah.
5th year,
18.
year 3 with Jefferson. So there should be enough trust and chemistry that, as much as they practice and play together and they do these off-season workouts together, that you don't want guys out there just freelancing, but you also know how Adam Thielen runs a route. And
yes.
I think the play yesterday, that's basically what they were saying. It was like, I can't remember how they phrased it. It was covered or whatever. And basically Cousins threw to a spot where he knew Thielen would be because they have that connection. Well, that's the benefit of having a guy who's stability and having, continuity with your personnel. That should be that's what you should expect, right?
Yes. And I guess my next question off of that type of throw, which I think is great. My next question is this: are you going to have the gumption to throw the ball up to Jefferson because he's the best player and odds are he's going to catch it? Like that, this is all, to me, baby steps of what could be. And I don't know. I don't want to get excited because it'll be shot down quickly if I am. But I do think that there is like a natural progression of, okay, Justin, this is a throw that I can make. Don't really like to make it, but I'm going to make it. And I trust you're going to catch it.
Well, did you notice O'Connell said yesterday, because he was asked further on, he's like, well, it's OTAs. There's not 70,000 people here. And if you make a mistake, it's not magnified. If you're a defensive back, if you get beat on a double move, oh, well, okay. You can watch it and film it. It's not like it's costing you a game. He said, guys try stuff out here all the time that they might not try in a game when there's pressure and there's, if it's an interception, it could cost you a game or win you a game. And so you would hope the more you try it, you carry it over to a game. But again, I think even O'Connell saying everything you see out here is, there's no penalty for being wrong in OTAs.
And that's sort of a message probably to Kirk, is like, Kirk, watch this on film. We need to see this potentially on a Sunday when there are 65,000 fans there on TV. So yeah, like, he's exactly right. Like, you can tell that he has given a lot of thought to what he can get from Kirk. And that, yes, treating Kirk well, which Mike clearly didn't consistently, is going to make a difference. But Kevin knows what he's dealing with here too.
Yeah.
This is not a surprise.
That's what I wonder, how much reflection that O'Connell gave to not just the X's and O's and all that, but the approach and personality and handling of Cousins
Yes.
that he's thought about. Okay, I want to emphasize this. I want to reinforce this. I want to, not say this. Or I bet there's a lot of that mental stuff that he's thought about, like, because Cousins is different than other guys. I think it's how he's coached really matters.
Oh, 100%. And he's not Stafford.
No, everybody has their own personality.
Exactly. And Stafford has I don't give a damn gene in his throws at times, which can be
costly. He has some throws that drive you crazy too. Yeah.
Yes, exactly right. But Kirk is, I think, for a good quarterback, he's about as risk adverse in 2022 as you can possibly be.
Yeah.
And I say that in fairness. And O'Connell knows that. And so he's going to try and milk this for what it's worth because he thinks. And so, this is why this season excites me so much. Because, it's the grand experiment.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's, and I don't want to say they made this coaching hire just because of Kirk Cousins, because Cousins, ideally, O'Connell far outlasts Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
So, but I think is a big part of it that, you've invested so much in this quarterback and this offense and the skill guys, and you're not getting the return on the investment. I mean, I keep banging this drum, but when you look at this offense and you tell me they don't finish top 10 in scoring with the talent they have, that's not good enough.
Exactly right. So speaking of return on investment, Chip Scoggins, I want to talk to you about my friends at Livia Weight Control Centers who have helped me shed 40 pounds. That's exactly right. And as summer approaches, I'm going to tell you right now, if you are looking to lose the weight and most importantly, keep the weight off, this is the plan for you. In fact, their new Simple Start plan, only $59. That's right, only $59 for a new you. Get one-on-one personalized and guided support online or in person from their team of experts. So if you're inside the state or out, you can join. How do you do so? 855-GO-LIVA, Livia, LIVEA.com, 855-GO-LIVEA, new Simple Start plan, only $59. Check it out. And again, you won't just lose the weight, you will be able to keep the weight off. All right, what else struck you from what we saw on the fields at TCO Performance Center yesterday?
Just how different the defense looks in personnel and alignment. It's just, when you see the 3-4 scheme and the new faces in there, we talk so much about how the offense is going to look different, Judd. I mean, the defense is going to look dramatically different too. And just simply by the way they line up, and then also in the faces and the players you see there. So just a lot of just change. That's the first time I've been out to an OTA practice, and it's like just not only the vibe and new coaching staff, but just schematically, just how stark the differences are.
I find it interesting too, Chip, and it's not surprising, but it's very clear that because they're doing brand new installations on both sides, that the rookie class is sort of being slow cooked big time.
Yeah.
Like Scene is
he's on the other field.
Second team, he's on the other field. So I would say this. Don't have your expectations too high initially, probably, for this draft class, because the reality is, and it's probably a smart one, they need to get the veterans into the system first. So I don't think that this is going to be an indication of what we're going to see into the future, but this is definitely all about trying to get the veterans as much knowledge about the scheme as possible in a short time.
Yeah, I mean, we were watching the ones versus ones on the one field, and then Scene was over with the twos on the other field, and you wonder how long it'll be before he's running with the ones, but they're not even in pads yet. They're not going to put a rookie with the starters when they haven't even put on pads yet,
Right.
And so O'Connell was asked about that a couple weeks ago when I was there, and he said, "Oh no, I mean, if it's earned, it'll be there." But I just think, Judd, there's so much installation right now and so much new material that even for Harrison Smith, this is new. And so you want the veterans, the guys who are surefire are going to be your starters, to have a good grasp of the scheme before you start throwing in rookies who, no matter what scheme it is, their heads are going to be spinning.
Yeah, and I think that's going to just take some time. So here's the one thing as far as the potential installation, especially at full speed, that I'm curious about too. Training camp will certainly give them time, but I mean the clock ticks quickly there. Like you
Yeah.
don't have back when we started on the beat, 2-a-days and pads. You could basically run those guys into the ground if you so chose. They don't have that now, and so I am interested in how much realistic full speed installation is going to be done by the Packers game.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to be the full thing on both sides is probably not true, but it's going to be essentially a race against the clock.
Yeah, and I think it's probably good that they have those joint practices they're doing with San Francisco. I mean, that
Yeah, we're
probably will
bringing
help.
in Shanahan and
Yeah.
Cousins.
So
Get talk.
I think that will probably help because that gives you it's still not full game simulation, but it does give you a little bit better sense. But you're right. I mean, O'Connell was asked about that yesterday in terms of like, how do you evaluate these offensive linemen when you're not really hitting, you're not going full speed. It's not, a real snapshot of what you're going to see. But he said that they can still evaluate, to some degree, like how they're moving, how they're, their technique, their the way they're working. So, that offensive line still, I would say that's still the interior of it. Still, I mean, it's Bradbury's job. It's Bradbury's job.
No, it's no question about that. They think they clearly think, and they probably won't go into too much detail on this. They believe that they can get something from him, and I don't know if it's because they think Kirk's going to get the ball out quicker, but I just don't see it. Like I think that pass protection wise, he is who he is. They disagree with that.
Yeah. I mean, they clearly are comfortable there. I mean, because they haven't brought anybody like legitimate to challenge him, and he's the guy. So we'll see if they can coach something different, scheme something different. But I remain skeptical.
Chip, you might be skeptical of the interior of the Vikings offensive line, but here's my guess: when it comes to Surly Brewing and Surly Furious in particular, skepticism out the door, enjoyment in. Talk about the tall boys, man. Talk about those tall cans.
Yeah, I mean, there's no skepticism when it comes to Surly Furious. I mean, it's 100% grade A every time, and you got to go tall boys. I mean, I know people like the 6-pack, maybe the 12-pack. You're not going as often when you do that, but if you wanted the full experience, 4-pack tall boys, Surly Furious, never fails.
Exactly right. And that does not include the summer beers that are coming out now, which is great. Final thoughts on as we prepare for the 3-day mandatory mini camp that comes up next week, and then a lengthy break until training camp starts. What are you most curious if there is a thing or two to see next week?
It's still not going to be a live 100, real football look. I just want to keep watching the offense. I want to see how they use Dalvin, if there's new wrinkles there. And then this wide receiver, O'Connell praised the wide receiver core yesterday. He likes where they're at. Smith-Marset has a little bit of injury that he's going to be done for the spring. But BC Johnson,
he got some Osborne, with first team.
He got some with KJ Osborne.
Yeah, he didn't practice.
He had a little something. I don't know what happened to him. But I'm just kind of curious to see how they use Jefferson, how they use Dalvin, how that offense functions and looks as they kind of ramp up towards training camp.
I'm also going to be in it's now 3 exhibition games. Is that correct? Down from 4. I'm also curious to see what they try and do because they're not going to do a lot there. Just the wrinkles that are going to be installed here, probably privately.
Sure.
But I think what we're going to see offensively and defensively through the exhibition games, and certainly with fans in the stands at training camp, will be as vanilla as possible.
Sure.
But I guess that's why I'm curious about in the opener against the Packers, the wrinkles that they're going to show and then continue to show. Because I got to think opponents are going to go back and watch Rams film. And I also think there's a fighting chance, and I brought this up to Phil and Dex as well. that O'Connell's going to use that to his advantage and try and use some players at positions that the Vikings probably prioritized more than the Rams did to show the Packers looks that they didn't see on a Rams film.
Yeah, and I'm another one, Irv Smith. We saw him run with the ones yesterday and some team stuff, and I'm really fascinated to see where he is health-wise and then how they employ him, because I think he could be
Agreed.
A big-time target for them.
Agreed. If he stays on the field, I think he becomes a huge receiving option that the Rams don't really employ. But I mean, he is basically the definition, when healthy, in a lot of ways, of the 2022 hybrid receiver tight end.
Yeah, and Judd, just watch him yesterday. When you see him on the field, he stands out.
100%.
Right? He just does. He stands out. And so if they can keep him healthy and, get the full Irv Smith that we saw in that training camp before he got hurt, I think he could have a big impact for him.
Great stuff, Chipper. Talk to you next week, man. Thank you.
All righty, brother. We'll see you
out there. Bye.